Casa De Klub. I like that. Nice.
Hey, we like that too, coming at you, something so brand new. We in a new stew, and the vibe so true, kinda like a Cy Young, he had to go grab two. He with that Arizona Wildcat, in that upside down hat, and how many have I had stay with me? Round two. It's the price of admission on the.
All right, we're back for another episode of Casa De Klub. Today we got ESPN columnist, New York Times best-selling author, and the authority on all things baseball, Mr. Jeff Passan. How you doing, Jeff?
Gentlemen, how are you? I don't know that I'm the authority on all things baseball, but I appreciate starting the program with lies. So thank you.
Yeah, you're the man with all the answers. First off, you do a fantastic job. Thank you for everything you do for the game. It's always seemed like there's no ego behind it. You just want to get the story across. But I have to ask you, how much do you sleep? How much sleeping is going on in Jeff Passan's life?
Probably about 4 hours a night.
Wow.
It's not great. It's really not good. Not just for like my own health, but I model terrible behavior for my children, and my older son is like 17 now, and he plays baseball and he goes to an academically rigorous school, and like for a teenage kid, he's got a lot on his plate, and I've seen like the hours of sleep for him gradually go down, and I feel like it's because I'm setting just an absolute horseshit example.
He's taking after dad.
Like. and I know, like as my career has gone on and we've had more studies on the importance of sleep and athletes have prioritized it, I got to get my 10 hours in. I just go in the opposite direction. And I'm hoping that like long term, it's not going to have a demonstrable effect on my health, because honestly, I think part of the reason I've been able to and lucky enough to have the career I do is because I'm able to put in 18 to 20 hours a day and can still function reasonably the next day. But this time of year especially, it's just the worst.
We wanted to get into it just right off the bat. Obviously, very well known in the baseball community, but surface level question: how are you getting the information so quickly? Why are you the first one to get the information that you get, and how are you able to put it out so quickly? Is it a trust factor? Is it just something that built up over time? Like, why are you the guy that releases everything important regarding the MLB?
I still don't think I'm the guy, so it's very kind of you. I appreciate that. And I never will, in the same way that I think that elite athletes always want more, right? Like, you can be proud of yourself, you can be happy with the job that you've done, but there's always that balance of doing so with the potential for complacency. And one thing I think I do that people appreciate is I work hard and I'm thorough, and I'd like to think that I'm thoughtful and that I approach this job like a human being. And it's a luxury. It really is, because I've done this long enough now and gotten to know enough people where if I don't get a story, I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up over it. I'm just, like, to brush it off and on to the next one. And so I think that allows me the leeway not to go chasing after things and not to potentially put anything out there that might not be true. And that really is, like, at the end of the day, I think why people have learned to trust me, because they understand that when I put something out, it has to be right. I'm not going to rush to print something. If I am 99.99% sure that something is happening, I will not put it out there. It has to be 100. I have to know. I have to have that confidence. And that knowledge can come from, a number of different places. Like, if this is somebody who I've known for 20 years, because I think this is going to be my 22nd year covering baseball coming up. If this is someone I've known for 20 years and someone who has always been truthful with me and someone who has direct involvement in something, then I'm a little bit more likely to go with a single source. But that's really rare. And it's rare too, because when a transaction is happening, let's say a trade goes down, right? I have gotten burned in the past when people have found out through my Twitter account that they got traded. I don't like that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to have something that is completely going to upend your life in every which way delivered to you via someone you may not even know or you may have talked with one time. I don't think that's cool. So when I get a tip on a trade, for example, I'll call up people in the organization. I'll call up agents. I'll call up the player if I know him and say, hey, is this true? So usually I have multiple people telling me that something is happening, and that makes me a lot more comfortable going with it. And it's, every transaction is different. And the way that I get the information is always different. Sometimes it's from people who I've known for 2 decades. Sometimes it's from someone who I met last week. Sometimes it's from a direct message on Twitter from a person like at Ryan47235. And it comes from everywhere, and it's part of the cool part of the job that every story that I break has its own unique story behind it.
I respect the fact that you don't put it out until it's true, because I think nowadays, especially, there's so many people that want to be the first to report it as opposed to reporting it correctly. And I think most people...
I'm greedy. I want both.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I respect the fact that you'd rather it be true than be the first. I mean, from a player's standpoint, that carries a lot of weight.
I appreciate that, and I think that that approach that I take now, I wasn't that way when I was younger. Like, I wanted the scoop, I wanted to get the news. And I wasn't going to be reckless about it. I was going to still have some judiciousness about it, but like chasing after it, it was the thing that I had to do. Mm-hmm. And in order to get to the place in my career where I wanted to be, I understood like news is the vehicle that's going to get me there.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure that out, because when I got into the business, all I wanted to do was just like write good stories about people and explore humanity and understand like what drives stars and what drives guys who are on the fringes and everything in between. And what I didn't recognize at the time is that the credibility that the news has brought me, and that like being first and being accurate has allowed people to open up more to me than they might have otherwise. Because I think they understand that I'm going to handle a story in the right way, and that I'm going to do it from that perspective where I don't look at you or any other player as, some part of a transaction. I see you guys as human beings who are making really difficult decisions and who are put into really difficult positions and who do something that's unfathomable to anyone who understands what it takes to be a professional athlete. Like the amount of work that professional athletes do and the dedication that they have to reach greatness. I still haven't like elucidated that in a story in a way that makes me feel like I fully captured what it takes to be an athlete. And that's something that, I'm in my mid 40s now, and it's something that I'm hoping over the rest of my career to finally figure out. And I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get it, because I almost feel like in order to really understand it, you have to live it.
So you have enough of a relationship with a lot of these players that when you get a tip they might be getting traded, you reach out to them directly.
Yeah.
So did that happen with you in all your trades?
I only got traded once. No, I had conversations with the front office in Cleveland when things were going down. They were really good about letting me know that like I was at the point where, with their organization, the restraints monetarily and stuff, that it was getting to that point where I was becoming too expensive and stuff. And so they were going to start exploring trades. So I had a heads up for sure. But I have heard plenty of examples of guys finding out, whether it be your Twitter or somebody else's, they find out from social media that they got traded, and that you feel bad for them. Like you said, like it can't be a a good way to find out that your life's getting upended and you're going somewhere else.
That's what I was going to say. Like, how does someone tweet out that Aaron Judge is going to the Giants? I mean, he spells his name wrong, one, but two, the wrong team. Like, how does that obviously they didn't, I forget who tweeted it out, but they didn't go to Aaron directly.
No, and I like full transparency. I don't have Aaron Judge's number in my phone either, so I would not have been able to do that. But it's part of why I've tried to prioritize relationships with players more and more. Not that it was ever deprioritized, but as time has gone on, I think I've understood, like, we can play the game as journalists at the level not above the players, but apart from the players. You can talk with executives, you can talk with agents, you can talk with marketing people, financial people, medical personnel, whoever it may be, who can offer you some insight into the athlete. But at the end of the day, the players are the ones who play, the players are the ones who make the decisions, and they're the ones who are going to give the greatest insight. And I hope that when it's all said and done, like, my reputation among players is that he was fair and he was right, because that's all I ever want. There are going to be times, like, sorry, but if a pitcher goes out and shits the bed in the World Series, even if I have a personal relationship with him, even if I like him, even if I'm fond of him and his family, I still have to acknowledge it and address it right about it.
100%.
Because the way that you get credibility, I think, is by telling the truth. And the truth is not convenient. The truth is just reality. It's what happened. And you can't gloss it over or not acknowledge something that might be uncomfortable just because of what your relationships are. When you do that, that's when you lose the credibility.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, we might need to do a little. We'll get Jeff to be our funnel. We'll gain his trust, and then he can we'll be the first podcast he passes along information to. But hey, we're in the thick of it now. What are you hearing with the man Juan Soto? I mean, I feel like every time free agency comes around, you hear rumors about these big players throughout, and I feel like a lot of it's just fluff. I mean, the Yankees, they've got to do everything they can to keep him.
Everything. And the question is, are they willing to, right? Like, I think this, as much as anything during the Hal Steinbrenner era of the Yankees, is the test to see just how serious he is about being the New York freaking Yankees.
Yep.
Like, and I don't know that anyone is ever going to be George Steinbrenner, because beyond the money that George spent, he was just such a phenomenal character, just such a piece of New York sports history. And it goes to the fact that, I mean, he was suspended for a year and he fired managers, like people get fired from, like, hourly wage jobs. And he was blustering, and he was everything as a reporter that you wanted in a sports owner, because it was good copy. Hal has approached the job in a much different fashion, and the New York Yankees are still, even with the Dodgers winning the World Series, even with Steve Cohen owning the Mets now, the New York Yankees are still the biggest and largest revenue franchise in Major League Baseball. A lot of money is coming into their coffers every year, and if they want to be known as the juggernaut that they are, then they have to put out the biggest offer for Juan Soto. They have to not just say, hey, you have great feelings toward us because you spent a year here and we went to the World Series and you get to play with Aaron Judge and you can be in Monument Park and you can go down as one of the greatest Yankees of all time.
Mm-hmm.
All that's all well and good. But every club has something interesting to offer.
Yeah.
Which is why I think money is going to ultimately be the separator. Not because Juan Soto is greedy. No, it's because he is somebody who had the conviction in his early 20s to turn down $440 million from the Washington Nationals with this specific moment in mind.
Yeah.
And you think he's not going to try and take that orange and squeeze every little last droplet of juice out of it? Of course he is. As is his right, as is his privilege, and as he freaking should.
I agree. I think it'll be fascinating to see, like you said, if it comes to it, a New York bidding war, in the offseason now between Yankees, Mets, maybe the Dodgers throw their hat in the ring, Red Sox.
I don't think the Dodgers are going to be.
I don't see that either. I mean, people talk about the Shohei signing made him so much money and stuff, but
it did.
It did. No doubt.
Yeah,
It did, but let's also let's look at that Ohtani contract. It's kind of funny that the biggest contract in North American sports history in terms of dollars that are going to be paid to someone actually might also be the best and most team-friendly contract that there's ever been too, because of two elements. Element number one, the deferrals are ridiculous. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's getting paid $2 million a year. And I understand how much money he makes off the field, of course. He doesn't need it. He's not going out and spending money on, extravagant, lavish things. He's going to get paid. But what it does is it takes down from $700 million the present day value to somewhere in the neighborhood of $450 million. In 10 years at $450 million for the Dodgers, that contract is going to pay itself off in 3 years. I'm serious. It's
mind-blowing.
With the amount of money that the Dodgers are making, it is beyond their wildest dreams. They're making money via advertising. They're making money via sales in the team stores at the stadium. They're making money in Japan. I mean, what the Dodgers have done in their strategy to internationalize themselves in the fashion they did, we're going to look back and see it as one of the brilliant baseball moves of the last quarter century.
So, I mean, when you say willing, though, what's the holdup for the Yankees? You just said it, the largest revenue pool in the league still. And this might sound crazy to say, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's arguably the best hitter in the MLB, but he's a two-tool player. Is he worth the same amount of money that Shohei Ohtani got?
No, when you put it that way, but there's also an argument that Ohtani didn't get nearly as much as he deserved.
Sure.
Which is crazy to say on a $700 million contract, but I think it's realistic at this point. And if we're just being honest about it, Ohtani should have gotten more. As for Soto, the difference between Ohtani and Soto is the age. Ohtani signing at 30 years old, Juan Soto's 26.
Yeah.
You guys get how valuable age actually is, because we've seen time after time when you got a 3 at the beginning of your age, teams start to treat you a little bit different.
Absolutely.
And so the notion of getting Juan Soto's age 26, 27, 28, and 29 season before you get to that 3, you have 4 prime years there. And for him and for his skill set especially, Corey, who was the guy you hated facing?
Miggy.
Okay, and why?
Because I didn't know how to get him out. I could get him to look foolish on a pitch, and he'd foul it off, and then I'd throw the same pitch 2 at bats later, and he'd be all over it. I struggled with him because he not only was extremely skilled, but he was also extremely smart, and he knew, based on what I had done to him previously, what I was going to do in the future as well.
And I think those same qualities apply in Juan Soto. And I understand that toward the end of his career, when he was approaching 40 years old, Miguel Cabrera wasn't quite the hitter that he was in his prime.
Yeah.
But when you look at the shared skills that Soto and Miggy have, and you look at Miggy's success well into his 30s and understand that the plate discipline, the knowledge, the studying of pitchers, the appreciation of absolutely owning that batter's box tends to translate into mid and even late 30s success. You can look at Soto and say, yeah, he's got power and he's got a hit tool. And the defense isn't, it's average at best, and it's probably only going to go down from here. And the speed, it's just, Juan's not fast. And the arm's okay, but if he moves off a corner outfield spot, he's probably going to end up either at first base or DH,
Yep.
and the arm really doesn't play there. You're not wrong in your assessment, but damn, that bat is so good in a game, guys, where hitting is so hard.
It's only getting harder too. It's only getting harder.
It's, I mean, that's how I look at it. Like, if we're trying to contextualize it with Juan Soto and through the lens of 5 tools, yes, you're right. But if you frame it a little bit differently and look at Juan Soto and his skills at the plate versus those of his contemporaries, he is so much better than everyone at that. And bats are so important and so few and far between now that you can make a reasonable argument that between his skills there and the marketability otherwise, that he does warrant $600+ million.
Teams have a lot easier time developing really good pitchers right now than they do developing really good hitters. So it's harder to make the argument that you can not that you're going to develop another Juan Soto, but you can't make the argument as easily that you can replace a Juan Soto as you can replace we'll say Corbin Burns.
Yeah, I had this conversation a lot with hitters toward the end of the season because it's probably going to run sometime next spring, but I was going around and asking guys, how do you hit? Like, how do you hit?
It's a great question.
When and I think this is the right way to look at it. You came in, Corey, or your career, Corey, was sort of toward the end when, like, the pitching lab was becoming a thing. But let's just look at what happens in a pitching lab. You have a high-speed camera that's going to allow you to see things in your delivery, in your grip, and in everything else that you would have had no idea about, a decade plus ago. You have TrackMan that tells you precisely what the spin rate, the spin axis, the velocity down to 1/10 of a mile per hour, all the stuff you need to know about pitch shapes. And what you can do is combine those things with different grips, different pressure points in order to develop a new pitch almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And you can spend one bullpen session fucking around with that pitch, and maybe you use it in a game, and all of a sudden, if you get a swing and miss, then, hey,
it's all the validation a guy needs. Yeah.
What can hitters do? You can't fix your swing in one cage session.
Nope.
You can't adjust to velo or spin or different things. And as nice as it is to have, like, the traject machine, which can replicate any big league pitch that was thrown, and which I think pretty much every organization in baseball has right now, it only goes so far because it's a lot different in game than it is facing a machine with a guy's, projection up there and the ball coming out of the same hole every time.
So different.
Yeah, we were just talking to Hosmer like 2 weeks ago about the same thing, just kind of where the game's at, like hitting versus pitching. Will hitting ever be able to catch up? Like, to your point, you can't really replicate swings. Where are you right now with the game of baseball? Because I know you're pretty big on, you have an opinion on the steroid guys not being in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think they should be, because I think I acknowledge they cheated. There's no question about that. And I'm not going to look back at baseball history and say, well, cheating's part of the game. No, cheating's not good. Cheating's never good. But my lack of full knowledge, or even I feel like 75% knowledge about what actually happened during the steroid era, who was actually using, and how pervasive it really was, to me suggests that anytime that I'm going to try and say this guy did and he can't be and this guy didn't, with the reality that I might point to someone and say this guy didn't when he actually did, I feel like it's not an easy way to assess what actually was going on in that era. And so because I don't have anywhere near as full of a picture of knowledge of what was going on then as I do, I feel like you just need to go to the objective assessments at that point. And the objective assessments tell me that if steroid knowledge was as pervasive as it was, then everybody's numbers were inflated on the offensive side. And I'm just going to go with the guys who were best, because I feel like the Hall of Fame is the place where the best players belong. And hitting the baseball, I still think, is the most difficult thing to do in sports. And maybe not like the aphorism was always like hitting a 95 mile per hour fastball. Nah, like if it's 95 and straight, you can hit it. But, like hitting Corey Kluber's breaking stuff, yeah, no thanks. you have absolutely no shot at doing that. And I wish this were a cleaner conversation, and that we could just look at the game and say, these guys did this, these guys did that, he belongs, he doesn't. But steroids are a reality of the game in the 1990s and 2000s, and to a much lesser extent, but still, like they're in the game now.
Guys still get caught, yeah.
So we have to. I feel like we have to have an honest conversation about it that has never been had, and that no one's willing to have. And the honest conversation to me about steroids is trying to figure out why there are particular things that guys can use that help them heal and that help them get stronger, and that are okay because they're approved by the FDA.
Because they paid for a certification.
Yeah. And there are other things that aren't. And so all of a sudden they're evil. It like all of this stuff, guys, exists on a continuum.
Yeah.
And it's not like steroids are at one end and some of the things that players are using are at the other. Like they're a lot closer, I think, than people want to acknowledge. And it all just gets back to the morality element of this. Like, how much can you do and push up to the point where you feel like there's still fairness involved? And what I think Major League Baseball has always been scared about is that they're going to be accused of having an unfair game. And yet you look what happened with the Houston Astros and the lack of really any punishment there
at all,
for any of the people that were involved, not just the players, but like AJ Hinch back in the game, Alex Cora back in the game, like Jeff Luhnow not back in the game, but I think that's for other reasons. Pretty much everybody who has been involved with the Astros cheating scandal has walked away clean, and the worst thing that happens is Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman still get booed a lot.
Right.
And it's not easy on them, but I think they understand that one of the consequences is that you're going to have that for the rest of your career.
Do you guys think the Hall of Fame guys or the steroid guys will get into the Hall of Fame eventually, or no?
No.
You think there's too many writers who are going to just have a hard line in the sand that they use steroids are not in?
Here's the thing. It's not going to be up to the writers, and that's why I don't think they're going to get in. When you fall off the writers' ballot, you go into what are essentially like every few years special elections, right? And these special elections, there's normally a committee of 12 or 16 people, and you need to get at least 3/4, I think, of the votes. And a lot of these committees are populated by people in front offices and a few writers. And I just don't think there's enough of a presence among that cohort that usually gets appointed to these things to look and forgive the players for what they did, or acknowledge the players for the excellence that they had on the field. I think in the same way that the Baseball Writers Association, you need 75%, and it doesn't take a whole lot of votes to make that not happen. When you're in a smaller group, it's even more acute in that situation where all it's going to take is 3 or 4 people saying no out of a dozen or 16.
Different tune. Do you think Pete Rose ever gets into the Hall of Fame?
Nope.
Yeah.
And which I've, my thoughts on Pete Rose are really complicated, because Pete Rose, the player, of course, deserves like one of the best players of all time. Pete Rose also had opportunities to get back in the good graces of the people who were going to allow him to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, he had meetings set up with Bud Selig earlier this century, and just like it didn't work out for him. He just walked away. You know, there were things that he was willing to do and truths that were convenient for him not to tell. And so he didn't tell them for a long time until it was profitable. And that's a choice Pete Rose made. And that is well within his right. I think what you have to get, though, is when you're trying for something like the Hall of Fame and it's important to you and there are different hurdles that you have to go over, you got to be willing to play the game. And Pete Rose was never willing to play the game. And honestly, God bless him for that.
Can you elaborate on that just for people who might not fully understand?
So when Rose got suspended by Bart Giamatti, it was for, the Dowd report came out and it was for gambling on baseball, gambling on his team. He was a pariah. But earlier this century, Bud Selig, the commissioner at the time, was open to the idea of reinstating Rose. And when that door opens right there, if the Hall of Fame is the greatest priority for Pete Rose, if getting back into this game that you love so much is the greatest priority,
you plow through that door, whatever it takes.
Yeah. I don't even know if you plow through it. I think you put on like your nicest suit and you shave really well and you walk in and you say, yes, sir, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
And you do everything you can. Listen, all of us in life sometimes have to eat shit. Yeah. That's just a reality of life. We have to do things that we are not comfortable doing in order to get what we want. And that's how marriages stay together, right? Like
facts.
That is what makes the world work. And Pete Rose was never willing to do that. And he was uncompromisingly himself until the end. And I think when it comes down to it, Pete Rose made a choice. He chose to be true to himself rather than to genuflect at the feet of people who he did not believe were worthy of his presence. And part of me loves him for that. And part of me, and a lot of his friends too, they pull out their hair because it's like, man, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And all you had to do was just say, yes, sir, no, ma'am, for a few, like fake it.
Yeah.
Like you don't even have to mean it.
You don't have to believe it.
Just play the role. And he never did that. And I think because of that, the Hall of Fame where Pete Rose, the ball player, belongs, Pete Rose, the gambler, will, because of it, never be there.
That's such a shame. I mean, he just didn't want to tell the truth about what happened, essentially, and come clean.
It wasn't even the truth. You got to kiss the ring sometimes. You got to, you go in and you tell the truth, but you also say, hey, I understand that, Major League Baseball is a great institution and that I brought some shame upon the game, and I'm truly sorry for that. And I want to do everything that I can to remedy that, to spend the rest of my life looking back on what I did and, telling people that gambling is wrong. And you know what? Instead, I think Jason Stark reported this. Instead of going to that meeting, I believe Pete Rose went to a casino that day. And that's, he was himself.
Yeah.
And people who are true to themselves, like what I was just saying right there, like you can turn the script on and you can act and you can smile and you can make everything good. Pete Rose was never going to do that. I think he thought that you have one life to live and I'm going to live it my way.
That is fascinating. I mean, it's just like, even back to the long ball era, I feel like people liked watching baseball more back then. Now, non-baseball fans are tuning in during the playoffs. And I'd be interested to hear what you have to say too, Klubs. How do you think overall baseball can market their players better? I think Shohei's obviously helping that case. But if you look at like Full Swing and the golf series, the Hard Knocks in the NFL, hockey just did it. Like, do you guys see baseball trying to go down that path to get people watching more?
I mean, there's a Netflix show coming out on the Red Sox at some point. So, but we've had that with the Marlins on Showtime in the past. I think it's about the stars. I think it's about having them out there in every way possible, crossing over into pop culture, being part of society. And guys, I don't know that the baseball life, particularly during the season, allows for that. In the NFL, you play one game a week. In the NBA, you play like 3, maybe.
Yep.
In baseball, you are playing every day. Every single 162 games in 187 days. It's an unrelenting schedule. And so in order to be out there and to be as present as I think is necessary for, stardom in this era where you have to be ubiquitous in every medium at all times, you have to be really committed to it. And I applaud Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is out there a lot, and he's podcasting, and he's always very good with his time with the media. And I think he's an example of what you can do. But Corey, I'll turn this back on you. Could you have imagined doing this show when you were playing?
Absolutely not. I think to your point, like the time constraints of the season itself, to really commit yourself and do it the best you can and try to be, your best each and every day while trying to improve and stuff. It doesn't lend a lot of time to, especially if you don't necessarily have an appetite for it. Like, I think Mookie's willing to take that on. He's willing to do it, number one, because he probably enjoys it, but number two, probably to help the game of baseball grow. And I just don't think that a lot of guys probably have that same desire to do that with their time.
No, and it's understandable, because I'm sorry, but like you're not getting paid to grow the game.
Right.
It's something that I'd like to think some guys are going to do out of the goodness of their hearts or giving back, but until you get that first contract, man, you are one blown out knee or labrum tear away from everything that you have being completely gone. And so there's a selfishness, I think, and maybe that's the wrong word, a focus on oneself. Because selfish has a negative connotation, but I think if you're focusing on bettering yourself and on taking care of your family, it's a very reasonable thing to do. And so it's why, when people ask me how does baseball market itself better, it's kind of a conundrum. And I don't necessarily think Major League Baseball is doing a great job. I think they're doing better than they have in the past, but it's a willingness of players as much as it is anyone to be open to that. And a lot of players just aren't. Enough of their time is consumed by baseball already that they don't think any differently. Now, maybe the next generation guys is different. I see someone like Max Clark, who is very active on social media and very engaging, and I like him a lot. I really hope he's as good of a baseball player as people think he's going to be, because he's the kind of guy who has, we have this generation of baseball players who have grown up with social media. That wasn't us. Like this was something totally new that we had to adjust to. But kids who have grown up in social media and understand it and understand the way to connect to Zoomers and to millennials and to the people that baseball really wants to connect to, because the average baseball fan is an old dude sitting there and watching cable.
That's the biggest struggle, is to get that new group to be interested in it, right?
Well, what about did the MLB not shut down that Trevor Bauer YouTube channel? I mean, he was getting content. Obviously, it's a little bit different. I don't know if the other players wanted that happening, but
I don't. When was that? I don't remember.
He was doing
Trevor blocked me a while ago. So.
he during COVID, when
did you tell the truth one too many times?
Yeah. When you couldn't go to the games, he was running a YouTube channel in that 2020 season when he won the Cy Young. And I'm pretty sure, because he was pretty out there in his comments in the videos about the MLB. And I thought, I could be wrong, I thought they shut his channel down. And I thought, young viewers loved that stuff. You know what I mean?
I don't know what happened there. And listen, anyone who can help bring eyeballs to baseball, I think it's a good thing. And I like, it's not my sole responsibility. The thing that ESPN pays me to do is to go out there and to get news and to write stories and to inform people and educate them about what's going on in baseball. But if through doing that, I can help bring more eyeballs to baseball, I feel like I'm doing a good service because I love the sport. Like I adore the game. I find it fascinating and interesting and complicated. And all of the people who are involved, I think, are trying to do the same thing in very disparate ways. And that to me is an incredible story. And you know, it's hard, I think, with attention span being what it is, to convince people to stick around for 3 hours or now more like 2.5 hours for a baseball game. But man, the story that 162 game season tells is so cool because it mirrors what we see in books and in movies where things are never in a straight line. Things are never easy. And the more that myself and whether it's in Cleveland with Zach Meisel and Paul Hoynes and Mandy Bell or in any other city out there, the more that we can tell that story and be able to show it in those terms where baseball is like a 162 chapter book, I think the better the game can be. And that to me is ultimately like the best reason for players to talk with reporters.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the record, on background, just bullshitting, whatever it is, we get smarter when we talk to you guys. You tell us things that we don't know. And our ability to inform our readership or our viewership or our listenership or whatever it is gets better the more we know. And so I think there's a bit of a symbiosis going on here where, yeah, sometimes we're going to be a pain in the ass, or we're going to ask you a question that you don't like, or we're going to write something that's uncomfortable. That's a reality. But to me, and I think that's the reason I've been able to foster the relationships that I have is because I think people understand that it can be a mutually beneficial relationship. A working relationship always, and not something that's ever going to exceed those bounds, but something where everybody who's involved is going to be able to walk away and say, I was better for that.
You were able to follow a couple guys around before you wrote your book on the Tommy John, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your take right now on why so many guys are getting the surgery. Obviously, a lot of people have different opinions. Corey, a couple months ago, I've never heard anyone say this, but he was like, I think the advanced imaging could play a factor into it now. Guys are.
What do you mean by that?
I think that teams and players are so quick to get imaging done nowadays that maybe, because you hear a lot of guys now, they're able to pitch through it, or they were unaware that they had this going on, that kind of stuff, and the imaging shows it, and then when that happens, you go get the operation done. One thought that I had was, what if guys have been dealing with it for an amount of time that they didn't go get imaging at the rate they do now and were able to, pitch through it?
I'm impressed that only a few years after retiring, you're already saying modern players are a bunch of bitches. That is very good.
Yeah. You said it, not me.
No, I've never thought of that. That's really interesting, though.
I think that the rate that MRIs are taken now is a lot more often than at least when I first started playing.
So
interesting.
For sure. And
if you want to find a problem, take a picture and it'll show you a problem.
Here's the thing: if you've been pitching for any amount of time, your elbow is going to look bad. That's just a reality. I think a lot of pitchers do grind through it, or do try to. And if you sit here and think, if you're a pitcher and you believe that getting Tommy John surgery is going to fix you, yes, you're not wrong. If you have a tear in your UCL and you get Tommy John, the vast likelihood is that you're going to come out and be okay afterward, and you're going to feel good throwing for the first time in a long time. But the greatest predictor of a future arm injury, guys, is a past arm injury.
Yep.
And once you've gotten cut once, the likelihood drastically increases that you're going to get cut again.
Yep.
And we saw it with Shohei. We've seen it with, to a different extent, Jacob deGrom got his first Tommy John when he was in the low minor leagues, and then, a dozen years later got another. Like, it varies. Every elbow is different, but I think there are two reasons. And this is as much a cause of what the elbow injuries are as it is like trying to find them. Because I think your point, Corey, is fair. Number one, I think we have a terribly broken youth baseball system that encourages all of the wrong things, whether it is competing for medals and trophies at 10 and 11 and 12 years old, or pitching multiple times in the same weekend because you have a tournament where if you're advancing, you're going to be playing 6 games and you need to cover 42 innings. And I've seen this with my own kid. Like, it's bad.
Yeah.
The youth development system in North America sucks. And Major League Baseball not taking a bigger role in that, I think, has been an abdication of duty from them. Because the kids who are really good when they're young probably are going to be pretty good when they're older. Yeah. And that is your future talent pool right there. And they are coming into your sport already broken. On top of that, it's velo. Like, the harder you throw, the more stresses on your arm. And we have learned how to train velo. And guys prioritize velo now, and they prioritize velo for a very obvious reason, because all of the evaluators who are looking at them, whether it is colleges recruiting them, whether it is pro scouts looking to draft them, whether it is farm directors looking to promote them, whether it's general managers looking to take them up to the big leagues. First question that's asked about a pitcher is what?
How hard do you throw?
Bingo.
Yeah.
It's not what's his command like. It's not how's his breaking stuff. It's not anything about pitching. It's not about his mentality. It's about, okay, what's the guy's fastball look like?
Yeah. Obviously, the best guys have the stuff and the command, but stuff wins out every single time in evaluating players now.
I mean, part of it's got to be these advanced throwing programs guys are doing, because, I mean, I think that's probably why guys throw harder now, right? Is all the technology.
They know how to optimize everything.
Yeah.
It's optimization. It's training too, though. Mm-hmm. Guys are bigger now. Guys are stronger now. And more than that, guys understand. My kid's a right-handed pitcher, and he understands if he doesn't throw 90, he's probably not going to get a whole lot of love from colleges.
Yeah, that's what gets you seen. That's what gets you noticed. Like, that's what they go to. Yep.
And the incentive structure that's in place right now sucks, because, I always loved watching you pitch because you pitched. There was purpose to what you were doing. There was thought. And don't get me wrong, you had really good shit too. Like, when you can combine those two things, that's how you win Cy Young awards. Mm-hmm. But I like the fact that when you were out there, you were thinking about how to approach guys. And I think that is far less of a concern now for pitchers than it was once upon a time.
Well, you only got to make it through 5 innings now as a starter. You don't get the opportunity to face a lineup a third time through almost ever.
Well, this has been fantastic, Jeff. We want to wrap it up with a little bit of a free agency prediction. We'll just go down the line with some of the big guys and see where Jeff thinks they're landing before we wrap it up.
I'm sorry to be that guy. Part of the reason that I have some credibility in this job is because I do not do predictions.
Yeah, there you go.
And I don't do predictions because I got to be honest, guys. There's so much going on behind the scenes that I don't know, that I feel like saying, "Oh, Juan Soto is going to go to the Mets." I don't know at this point.
Nobody
no one's
knows.
offered a fucking dollar yet. So for me to sit here and say, "Oh, these are the favorites," I can tell you who makes the most sense or
Yeah.
who the best fit is.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, I'm sorry to
do that.
be the Debbie Downer on the.
No, let's do that.
No,
Let's
we'll do that.
best fit in your mind.
We'll do. We'll just change the verbiage on the question. So this is best fit, not prediction. So we could get a couple teams here. I guess. I mean, might as well start with Soto because a lot of teams have been thrown out there. But what do you think the teams that would be the best fit for Juan are?
This one's so hard because the Toronto Blue Jays can completely remake their organization and sell Juan Soto on going to Canada and being the sports hero for an entire country.
Mm-hmm.
And the Boston Red Sox are ascendant right now and they need that like foundational guy. And if Juan Soto's priority is to be the man where he goes, then Boston's the right spot for him. If it's to get the most money, Steve Cohen's the richest owner in baseball. So presumably it's going to be the Mets. And if it's to have the kind of pinstriped legacy that so many guys desire, it's the New York Yankees. And I made the case for all four there because I think all four are very reasonable places for him to land, which is why in the end, I do think money is going to be what talks.
Yeah.
You got Kloops?
I'll take the pitcher, Corbin Burns.
The Baltimore Orioles need to sign him.
I agree.
Go and look at their rotation right now. It's Zach Eflin, it's Grayson Rodriguez, it's Dean Kramer. They've got some guys there. They need a dude, though. And they saw what Corbin Burns can do. He was brilliant in the playoffs. He was phenomenal otherwise. And more than anything, it's to spend money. Like the Angelos ownership in Baltimore never spent money. David Rubenstein has come in, has said he's going to field a proper team.
Mm-hmm.
And signing Corey Kluber, to me, would tell Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jordan Westberg, Jackson Holliday, and the rest of the players who were there, this team is not just talented. We want to do this for a long time.
Love that. We'll go Alex Bregman. Best fit for Alex Bregman.
I mean, Houston fits like a glove, but I want to see him go to Detroit.
Yeah.
I understand the Tigers have Jace Young and Matt Vierling can play third base. So they have options there. And AJ Hinch did a brilliant job of, he would throw out his lefty lineup. He would throw out his righty lineup. He would mix and match with pitching. Like it was a tour de force managing job. But man, I feel like the edge that Bregman brings and the leadership is just something that in a clubhouse full of young players, like this guy's been through some shit. Like he has seen things, he has won, he understands what it takes, and I think he's a perfect fit there.
Love that, Cole. Yeah. What about Sasaki?
That's one I really don't know.
Yeah.
I've never talked with. Actually, I lied. I have talked with Roki Sasaki one time. I have been trying to get over to Japan because I don't know. Do you guys know the story of like Sasaki's childhood?
No,
I don't.
Do you guys remember the tsunami that came through in Japan?
I did hear something about this. Yeah.
Like 13, 14 years ago. Sasaki's like family.
Whole family,
died in
right?
that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Like it was really bad. And the fact that he has become just this astounding talent. I wanted to go to Japan and write about it, and I never got to, but I saw him at the World Baseball Classic, and I was walking, he was walking out of the clubhouse, going down the tunnel in Miami, and I was like, shit, he doesn't speak English. What do I do? And so I pulled out Google Translate, and I wrote in, and I said, I really enjoy watching you pitch. And I showed it to him, and he said, thank you. And that was that's the extent of our interaction. So what I know about Roki Sasaki is not all that much. But I will say this: I think the San Diego Padres have a really good shot. I think they check a lot of boxes, and they have Yu Darvish, who is a seminal figure to Sasaki.
Yeah.
Yu Darvish, when Roki Sasaki was growing up, was like the guy over here, and he has been very generous with his time, his advice, his thoughts. So I'm not calling anyone the favorite. I do think that everyone's saying he's going to the Dodgers, and I've said this from the beginning. I do think that part is overblown. I think there's going to be a real sweepstakes here, and as much as we're focusing on Soto, as we should, to the 30 teams in Major League Baseball, Sasaki is far, far more interesting because you're not going to have to pay him anything, and you're going to have control for 6 years.
Yep, I agree. Well, Jeff, really enjoyed this. I could sit here and talk about this stuff all day, but we'll let you get back to your real job.
The great Jeff Passan, thank you for everything you do for our game, and this was awesome having you on the Casa De Klub today. And don't forget about the we'll get like a rev share going, and we'll just get the information from you directly.
I worry ESPN's going to have something to say.
They might have something to say about that.
Yeah, well, we'll slip something here now and again.
Love it. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Price of admission on the Casa De Klub.